for coming. It's really nice to see such a room big, full of people. So, unfortunately, Carly can't be today here with us because she's off on, but we have Susanna Hall covering her for the next 6 weeks. So she's been working in Gateshead previously, but she's been working in Sunderland as well. So she's been in this role. So if you have any questions, feel free to just get in touch with Stan. And today we have Sam Ogle with us from Dream Big, Live Bigger. As well as representing himself as a disabled rights activist, Sam also represents our local youth voice groups, including STARS, Sunderland Youth Council and Young Commissioners. Nationally, Sam represents FLARE, the Department of Education's Youth Advisory Group run by the Council of Disabled Children. So Sam is here today to talk about the power of youth voice, what's effective co-production looks like, and as an expert by experience, he's also going to talk about SEND, education mainstream transitions, and what it's like to be a young person living with this disability. So, but first, let me talk a little bit about Sam in his own words. I'm a human navigating a world not designed for me. It's tough, but so am I. I'm a sports fanatic. I coach football. I'm a college student. I'm a total foodie. I'm an advocate. I'm all about equity. I hold people to account. I speak up. I have dreams of living a big and full life. Dreams of traveling. Dreams of achieving my ambitions. Big, big dreams. As Sam says, but life is for living, not for dreaming. Dream big, live bigger. Let's welcome Sam. Can I please ask everyone to scan the QR code that's on your table so you are able to participate in what comes next? And thank you, Sam.
Hello everyone. Thank you for coming to hear me speak today. It really means a lot. And also, thank you for that amazing introduction. I hope you were able to answer the Mentimeter question as you arrived. If not, you can do it now. There are QR codes around the room and on the screen. You can use these to interact with me, to make comments and ask questions. I will answer as many questions as I can at the end when we do the Q&A session. I was really keen to find out what you think about co-production, as the word is used often but not always in the right way. I have been involved in co-production for many years as part of my youth advocacy work. I have also been involved in consultation, giving feedback, checking things over, and sometimes a tokenistic box-ticking exercise. Sometimes these are mistaken for co-production. Real co-production is a collaborative process where service providers work together to design, develop and deliver a service. The people who are directly affected by the service have a say in how it is created and managed. This starts at the very beginning, not halfway through or at the end. Co-production involves shared decision-making, meaning everyone has an equal say. Services users have active participation, which means they are not just consulted, they contribute meaningfully. There needs to be mutual respect between practitioners and service users. There also needs to be power sharing, so authority and responsibility are distributed. We are all equal in the process. Co-production means working with, rather than doing it. In short, services should do nothing about us without us. I want to share with you a case study of where co-production has worked brilliantly in Sunderland. I am a big believer in celebrating success. I also think that if people do a really good job, we should tell them. So, I am going to name names. I have permission to do this, by the way. I want to tell you about my involvement with Sunderland Care and Support and, in particular, wheelchair services, which began back in 2021. I have had a power wheelchair since the age of 3. When I was very young, my posture was easier to manage as I could just be picked up and readjusted easily. However, as I have grown, my posture has become much more complex due to complications of having cerebral palsy. I have had multiple hip and knee operations to reduce pain and improve function, but what's really important for me is good postural management 24/7. By age 11, the wheelchair I had was completely unsuitable for me. I was slipping down all of the time. I was in pain, uncomfortable, and it was affecting my whole life. I can't stand or sit on my own, so my wheelchair basically holds me up and shapes my whole body. Out of all the services I use, and believe me there is a lot, wheelchair services is by far the most important for me. Without my wheelchair, I have no mobility at all and therefore no independence or ability to do anything or go anywhere. After finally getting to the top of a very long waiting list, the service I received from wheelchair services did not meet my needs. I was not given a proper assessment from a trained therapist and I was given off the peg seating, then discharged. My problems continued, which was very difficult as it was also the time of my transition into secondary school, which was not going well. My mum decided to make a complaint about wheelchair services. This sounds negative, doesn't it? But actually, if people don't make formal complaints when they are warranted, then how does a service know it is failing its users? The response we got to the complaint was extremely positive. M. Anderson, head of therapies at Sunderland Care and Support, was immediately proactive and set up a Teams call with Sam Taylor, the head of wheelchair services, and Tracy Rumford, the strategic manager for therapies, as soon as she saw the state I was in my chair. In the short term, she sourced a specialist occupational therapist from another service called Lindsay Proud, who did an urgent assessment of my postural needs. Lindsay arranged for a bespoke seating service to design a moulded chair, which was, at the time, not on offer. Lindsay helped me so much. She really understood my needs and tried hard to make everything as easy on me as possible, doing all visits and assessments at home. Since then, I have had a range of bespoke seats made for me as I have grown, which have made a huge difference to my life and other people's too. The other thing Emma did was set up a wheelchair user forum, which has been running ever since. The decline in my posture was down to a number of factors, and she wanted to address them all. She wanted to make the service into what the users wanted and needed. Just 6 months after my initial complaint, the wheelchair forum had made huge changes to the service. We now have a quarterly wheelchair forum meeting, which is going from strength to strength. I want to share with you some of the main improvements made to the service, as it really has been a complete transformation. The service now has front door with a direct line, a mail address, and 2 admin staff. Previously, you had to phone the generic council health and wellbeing number, which is the same one you ring if you need a new dustbin. You had to wait on hold for ages, then speak to someone who took your details. No previous records were held, so every time you rang, it was a new referral and you had to answer the same questions again and again. There are follow-up phone calls after appointments to check all is going well. This is done by VoiceScape, an automated telephony app that gives you the option to speak to someone if also. Before that, there was no follow-up and you were discharged from the service after every appointment. The biggest change for me and other young people is the service now has a review system in place. As a grown child, it was hard to get appointments to match my growth and I ended up growing out of my chair multiple times. Previously, you had to refer back to the service time and time again, which did not meet the needs of grown children. There are lots of other things the service has done, such as employ and train more specialist wheelchair assessors, reduce and monitor waiting times, introduce school clinics, including mainstream schools, review the way wheelchairs are repaired and maintained, ensure wheelchair personal budgets are offered, develop a user Facebook page and more. Hot off the press is that the service have secured a contract with a bespoke seating service to meet the needs of those with complex postures, like me. This means there will be more appointments available and a more sustainable offer for those with complex seating needs. Sunderland is the first wheelchair service in the country to offer this, and I am glad to have been part of this process. Going back to my definition of co-production earlier, I can honestly say that working with wheelchair services has been a true example. I have had an equal say in shared decisions. I actively participate and am listened to. My ideas and feedback are used to shape the service. We are all equal in the forum and everyone respects each other. I can honestly say that wheelchair services do nothing about us without us, and I believe they wouldn't even want to. I'm looking forward to where the forum will take us in the future. We want to better the lives of wheelchair users. We are looking at wheelchair transport and ambulances, which is currently not available. We are passionate about transport in general, with huge issues for wheelchair users on public transport. Plus, there are virtually no wheelchair taxis in the northeast. Sunderland Care and Support have involved me in other ways too. If you haven't been to the Smart House at Leachmere, I urge you to go and take a look. It features everything someone with a disability could possibly need to live an independent life using all the latest tech. That's why they invited me to test it out. The service was recently inspected by the CQC, and of course we were invited to contribute. The report is not back yet, but I hope they get the recognition for the amazing co-production in wheelchair services. I think this case study should be shared with as many services as possible to demonstrate the impact co-production can have when it is done really well. Thank you Emma, Sam, Tracy, Jill and the rest of the group. Together we have made people's lives better. If you have any comments or questions about co-production, please send them using Mentimeter now. While you're doing that, here's a quick video telling you a little bit about the forum. You catch a glimpse of me checking out the Smart Home too.
The forum, from a wheelchair user, my personal point of view, is to give a body and a mouthpiece, if you like, for people who aren't as vocal or aren't as confident, and kick down them barriers, kick down the doors.
In the past, people have been able to get quite standard chairs, and now what we're able to facilitate are a budget that, you know, for children, they can go and get one that's pink and sparkly and has lights on the wheels and things that are more attractive.
Everything used to be generic black, generic silver, and to have a little girl come up here in a pink one and actually look you up and down and physically compare wheelchairs, and she's looking at hers going, yeah, mine's better than yours now. It makes a massive difference, because it's not just physical then, it's what's in here that can make you smile from the inside. And seeing that on a kid's face, it just makes a heck of a difference.
I would now like to talk to you about catering for special educational needs and disabilities in mainstream education. A couple of weeks ago, I did a ministerial roundtable where I presented to Minister Catherine McKinnell, who has responsibility for SEND. The focus of the meeting was SEND in mainstream education. I will share with you now the points I made, which were very well received by Minister McKinnell and her team. I have had an education, health and care plan since I was in nursery, but I have always attended a mainstream school. The main reasons for this are that I don't have a learning disability, and mainstream was a better fit for me socially too. Since leaving school in 2024, I have had time to reflect on my mainstream education. There are many aspects I could talk about, however I want to focus on the things that really stand out looking back. These are the things I believe many young people will look back on and remember, whether they have a disability or not. The first point I would like to make is around social inclusion. From a young person's point of view, the social aspect of school is a huge part of it, if not the biggest part. Without positive relationships and friendships, school would be much less enjoyable. Throughout primary school, I had friends and even a best friend. However, when I moved to secondary school, everything changed for me. The way my support was delivered meant I spent most of my time with adults. I missed breaks and lunch times with friends because I needed support, which often meant spending time indoors in a special needs hub away from my friends. By year 9, I had no meaningful relationships with any of my old friends, despite being a very sociable person. This was a direct result of my disability. I'm sure most people, even yourselves, can remember going on school trips, which is the focus of my second point. Fighting for the back seat of the bus, your first night away from home and generally having fun. I have none of those memories due to my disability. I have never been on a school trip that properly catered for my needs and have been excluded totally from many of them because the school couldn't manage to make them accessible to me. I was told that the school was sorry on many occasions. This did not make me feel any better. I would like to tell you about my experience of physical education and sport, which is where I believe I have been completely failed by the education system. You may have heard of the term physical literacy, which is a combination of motivation, physical competence, knowledge, and confidence of physical skills and movement with the intention of making people active for life. I feel as though this was never applied to me, which makes my experience of PE extremely ableist and inequitable. I understand the goal is for people from a very young age to learn to see exercise and fitness as part of their everyday lives. It is very important that people with disabilities aren't excluded from this and that educators are specifically trained to meet the needs of everyone, even those with very limited mobility. Physical literacy needs to be equitable and everyone should benefit. Otherwise, by the nature of what it is trying to do, it is inherently ableist and non-inclusive. It is only now, at age 17, that I have found my own meaningful way to exercise for the first time in my life. Another thing that really sticks out in my mind is how my medical needs affected my education. I have always had a great deal of appointments to attend, which has caused me to miss a lot of school. My attendance was never good enough to take part in any attendance schemes the school did, and they did a lot of them. I also missed about 5 hours of learning a week so I could use my standing frame and have physio. This will have definitely had an impact on my learning, which I don't think mainstream schools recognise. I really wish there had been the opportunity for me to take less GCSE subjects. It was very difficult for me to cope with exams as I get very tired. Everything I do is more of an effort. I was allowed rest breaks and 50% extra time. However, this just tired me out more because I was in exams 50% more than everyone else. Mainstream schools should consider how they can adapt things for children with medical needs. Nobody wants to be poorly or have operations, so it should be made easier on those that have to go through it. As an expert by experience, I feel able to offer some good advice to make mainstream education better for children and young people with additional needs. A very good place to start is to actually ask the young person what it is they want to achieve, what is important to them, what they feel capable of, and what they see their challenges to be. Too often, people make assumptions which turn out to be wrong. I believe that things work back to front. Schools plan for the mainstream, then see how things can be adapted for those with needs. If you plan for those with additional needs first, then those with no barriers to learning will be fine either way. I have lost count of the number of times I have been let down because teachers have not thought about my needs before planning something. I understand it is easier to think of the big picture first, then plan the details. However, this just means that people like me, whose needs are complex and difficult to meet, are left out or given a token gesture activity to do. This sort of thing doesn't just happen in schools. It is everywhere I go. Things that haven't been thought about until it is too late. There is no point having a disabled toilet that isn't big enough for a wheelchair. There is no point having a disabled parking bay with no ramp or drop curb to get off the road. There is no point in having doors that are wide enough for my wheelchair if they don't open automatically. I could go on and on. I understand it can be difficult to get things right for us in schools. However, I have been made to feel too expensive, too much trouble and too much hassle my whole life. No child should be made to feel like this. It is not their fault they have a disability. We are all equal and deserve equality of opportunity. Educators need to be given the training, resources and tools to be able to include everyone. And everyone means everyone. I always say, please don't try to reinvent the wheel. Look at existing good practice and use this to make things better elsewhere. Imagine being the child who watches everyone in PE, who waves their friends off for their school trip, or who has never felt the physical and mental benefits of physical exercise. There are ways to include us, and they are worth finding, as nobody should ever be left out. I would like to finish this section by telling you about the best thing that happened to me in mainstream education. I was very lucky to have an amazing support assistant during secondary school. She recognised my qualities and supported me to achieve my goals, especially when it came to football. She saw how hard I tried with everything I did and how determined I was to succeed, despite all my challenges. In 2021, she nominated me in the Personal Achievement category for the Sunderland Young Achievers Award. Not only was I smashing it in school, I was also working as an advocate for children with Send with the Stars Youth Voice Group and Sunderland Youth Council. Amazingly, I won my category, and even more amazingly, I won the whole competition. This was a huge boost for me and a recognition for all my hard work. Since then, the only way has been up. I have continued to smash my goals, advocate passionately for young people with disabilities, and have started my own business as a disabled rights activist. And I am only 17. If you have any comments or questions about my mainstream school experience, please send them using Mentimeter now. While you are sending in your questions and comments, I would like to show you my nomination video for the Young Achievers competition. I look so young. I didn't have my communication aid back then, so I did my video a little differently.
That's how old.
So now on to transitions, which is virtually a swear word in my house. LOL, never have I had a good transition. The transfer from primary to secondary school was a dreadful experience. However, my transition from secondary school to college was the most stressful time in my education so far. You will not be surprised to learn that, when it comes to my education, I am extremely driven, focused and determined. I have known what I want to do for a career since I was in primary school and have never changed my mind. My dream of being a football coach will become a reality because I am already making this happen. The hurdles I have faced to get this far have been enough to put off even the most determined young person. With the support from my family, and now also from my peers, I was able to keep fighting until eventually I received the support I needed to get to college. I could now spend a long time telling you the battles we had to get my support in place for my post-16 transition. However, I am looking forward, not backward. To be honest, it is a time in my life I do rather forget. To give you the gist of it, the fact I had chosen an out-of-area college caused problems in the first place. The pathway for young people in Sunderland with SEND is to attend a college in Sunderland. I have always wanted to go to Newcastle College, who accepted me, but I then had to appeal for transport. The legal timescales of my post-16 transition EHCP review were completely ignored due to disputes over my personal budget. I had chosen to merge my education, health and social care budgets together to be able to employ my own PAs. Basically, everything had been agreed, but the personal budget amount didn't cover the agreed support package. It took almost a year from the date of my review to finalise my EHCP for college, which had a huge effect on me being able to secure my support in time. It was a rocky start, but in my usual style, I just kept going. I now have two amazing PAs, Jack, who is here today, and Andrew. My life has completely transformed. My family have more support to help with my needs. I am getting out without my parents. I am going to the gym. Jack and Andrew support and help me all week, at home, at college, when travelling, at the gym and when we go out socially at the weekend and during holidays. They come to my hospital appointments, do my physio and meet all of my personal care needs. They are more than carers or support assistants. It is like having two big brothers who truly get me and want the best for me. So, to summarise my post-16 transition, despite the awful time we went through, the overall outcome is 100% positive. I advocate for more young people to opt for a combined personal budget, as there are so many benefits to having the control, flexibility and choice over your support. The process of getting their needs to be much easier though. I would love the opportunity to work with the local authority to develop a smoother post-16 transition into further education. Before I talk about my upcoming transition into adult health and social care, I would just like to point out something. Nobody my age without a special need or disability transitions. They just call it growing up. I'm not going to wake up on my 18th birthday and all of a sudden be an adult capable of taking care of myself, which is normal whether you have a disability or not. I speak to my mates at college who are already 18 and they still ask their mum or dad to do most things for them. You can imagine how I feel with all my additional needs. What makes people think that I can just switch from being a child to an adult just like that? I think practitioners would answer that by telling me about this thing called preparation for adulthood. It describes how a young person with SEND should be supported throughout their teenage years and continuously into adulthood. This applies to education, health and social care. The thing is, in my experience, preparation for adulthood has been pretty much non-existent. Me and my family have tried to be proactive around getting support for my transition into adult social care and health care. My personal budget has social and health care components, so it is really important that this continues seamlessly. We asked to be referred to adult social care last year to begin the process of transition, only to receive a telephone call from adult social care saying they will not get involved until my 18th birthday. We are in the process of trying to resolve this, which is just another thing to add to our list. Please look at the question on the screen and use your phone to answer. Do you think I qualify for support from the Health Transitions nursing team?
Turn mine round because for some reason it won't switch to. I don't know if you can see the screen there, but it won't switch on there. So. For those who can't see, it's basically a resounding yes is the answer.
Thank you for taking the time to answer my question. If you responded no, then you are correct. I do not meet the criteria for this service in Sunderland. This is because I do not have a learning disability. I believe this is wrong and there is a gap in service for young people like myself who have a complex range of ongoing health needs. I may not have a learning disability, however there are multiple factors making it much more difficult for me to look after my own health needs, such as communication difficulties, complete reliance on others for independence, memory and organisational issues, and dyscalculia. Plus I have so many paediatric practitioners. I have a neurodisability consultant, spinal consultant, orthopedic consultant, cardiac consultant, renal consultant, gastric consultant, physiotherapist, speech and language therapist, occupational therapist, and orthotist. I am also receiving support from CAMHS. Luckily, wheelchair services covers adults and so does my specialist dentist, so I am the least worried about these. However, I don't know who will meet the rest of my needs as all these people will go. To top it all off, I am due to have some very big bony surgeries starting in July this year. I have already been told by my consultant that I am not allowed back on the children's ward, which has caused me a great deal of anxiety. I'm still 17 in July, so I don't understand this. I know all the nurses there and they know my needs. Also, I will need lots of rehab, but my physio won't be with me anymore when I turn 18. I was hoping the health transition team could support me with all of this, but like I say, I am not eligible. If you have any comments or questions about transition, please send them using Mentimeter now. I always say, never moan about something if you are not prepared to try and fix it. I have spoke up for myself and others over the years, even to government ministers. While you send in your comments and questions, please watch this clip of me presenting to education and healthcare ministers in 2023. I was speaking about transition and my concerns over my future. It's a bit long, so I've trimmed it so you can hear the response from the ministers.
I think that there is no point in having a law to protect young people with SEND if there are no consequences if it is broken, as it seems to be in my experience. In the new improvement plan, there is going to be guidance on effective transitions. How will this support someone like me in year 10 wanting to transition to college in 2024?
Brilliant, Sam. Thank you very much. You've raised quite a few points there that are picked up in the improvement plan. Ministers, is there anything you'd like to?
Yes, so just to say, I think this point about transitions is crucial, because one of the things that I've seen and heard a lot from families and young people is they had one setting, whether it was their primary school or might have been their secondary school or whatever it was, where they were settled and things worked well, and then it was when they went to their next step and the adjustments or the flexibilities that they found that worked for them didn't follow through, meant that they sort of had almost like a cliff edge moment. And I think it's really important for confidence and trust to be able to manage those transitions smoothly. So we are looking at guidance. You rightly talked about that difference between primary school and secondary school being a big factor, but also secondary school and post-16 as well. And then FE colleges to adult care. There's lots of challenges, if I'm being honest here, in the current way things are working. So we're going to set out guidance on what the best practice is to try and make that smooth. And we're also looking at things like adjustment passports, which transfer from your education to your employer, so that you've got, again, sort of that continuity. Just about this point about timeliness and council. So I actually represent a seat which is one of the highest rises in demand, and it's definitely very much struggled in terms of delivering on SEN. So when I have my sort of weekly surgeries with constituents, a third of the people I speak to are sort of parents and young people related to something to do with SEN. So I've seen a lot of this in my time in Parliament. And what I think is this, so basically I understand the argument that people say the law is there, just hold them accountable, why don't you fine them or do something like that? But what I've seen, particularly up close and looking at the whole system, is usually the reason that they haven't responded isn't because they didn't want to, it's because something has gone wrong in the system. Maybe they don't have the right sort of caseworkers, so we're putting forward guidance and training for SEN caseworkers and councils. Maybe they couldn't get the health assessment, which is why I'm working jointly with Minister Caulfield and making sure we've got the specialist workers in place. It might be that they can't find the right school place. We're looking at having sort of plans for each area so you can have enough specialist places close by. And I think there's two things. I think there's the accountability, which has got to be there in the system. So we've got that sort of tribunal process, which we haven't changed. but there's also got to be a look under the bonnet of why they aren't delivering and making sure that they have what they need to deliver on time. So I think you've got to kind of come at it from both sides, which is what we're trying to do, because I think when you look at any system, if you say just do it better and they're like, well, I don't have the things to do it better, then you don't tend to get the improvement. So I mean, that's what we're trying to do, but I realise it's a real challenge, and when I speak to sort of families and the weights that they're having with local councils, it is incredibly concerning. So overall, we're making each area do a plan, which is a local inclusion plan with all of their partners, to make sure that they can plan for everything that they need, so this system is all much smoother.
Before I tell you about Youth Voice, I want to tell you about my own voice. When I first began Youth Voice work, I didn't have a communication aid. I used my own speaking voice. My voice is quite good, but speaking is very tiring for me and varies quite a lot. It can also be difficult for people to understand. I decided that I needed a better voice so I could communicate more effectively, so we started to investigate ways that I could begin using my tech voice in my groups. After talking with some of the practitioners we work with about what we were trying to do, they were really keen to help. We called our group Project Voice. We soon had a team including our occupational therapist, speech therapist, assistive technology team and my youth group leaders. Because I could speak, I had never explored the possibility of a communication aid. But I have so much to say. I couldn't possibly have used my speaking voice today and achieved what I have. The project was a roaring success. I tried various devices and apps which the team helped me select based on a list of criteria of things I wanted to be able to do. I wanted the voice to be loud enough for big rooms. I needed to be able to pre-program my device for presentations, and there were limitations to what I could use because of my limited hand function. I was invited back to the Sunderland Young Achievers Awards the year after. I want to make a speech, which I will share with you now. Compare this with my nomination video you just saw. I think you will notice a big difference. You will also notice I have changed my voice since then, LOL.
Listen very closely. This is high-tech technology. Over to you, son.
Hello, my name is Sam. Last year, I was the winner of the Personal Achievement category, which made me feel amazing. I then went on to win the overall Andy Neal Award, which was a huge surprise. Firstly, I want to explain why I chose to use my technology to talk to you tonight. Even though I can talk, it can be difficult for me sometimes and also sometimes difficult for people to understand. I think it is really important for people to be able to communicate what they want to say and not be held back. I can now choose to use my iPhone to help me talk in any situation. The other day, I ordered for myself in Costa for the first time. Woohoo! This is my first time using my technology in front of a lot of people. My hand was really doing this. I want to tell you what it means to me to have one. Since last year, everything was done online, and I didn't get the opportunity. I won the award because of my hard work and perseverance through difficult times. I am also an ambassador for my school and my city, as I participate in lots of youth voice groups. People generally admire my attitude as I am very determined and positive. I feel as though it is a big achievement for someone with a disability like mine to be able to overcome challenges and do the things you might not think I can. I like to think of myself as differently abled, rather than disabled, as it sounds more positive. I am very proud of my achievements and to be part of the awards again tonight. In the future, I plan to continue to advocate for young people and also to pursue my dreams of becoming a football coach. Always remember to never let things hold you back in life. If I can do it, you can do it. I hope you enjoy the rest of the night.
As you heard, Sam was last year's winner, so he's going to be this year's winner.
Project Voice didn't give me was probably the most important thing on my list. I wanted a Geordie accent. Your voice is a big part of your identity, and so is your accent. Last year, I was referred to the Regional Communication Aid Service, who offer more specialist devices. I swapped my Sri voice for Geordie Steve, as he is known as. He still doesn't sound like me, but the way technology is moving, I am sure they'll work that out before long. So back to Youth Voice. My journey began back in 2021 when I joined STARS. The group was brand new and I was one of the original members, or OGs, as we like to call ourselves. STARS are the Sunderland Youth Voice group for young people aged 12 to 25 who have SEND. Until I joined STARS, I was very socially isolated. I made new friends and was having my voice heard for the first time. I want to show you this very short clip we made a couple of years ago to celebrate the things we can do. Sadly, my friend Eva, who you will see on the video, passed away last year. She loved STARS so much, I thought this would be a nice little tribute to her.
STARS are a group of unique individuals with special educational needs and disabilities. We are all different, with different needs that come from our special conditions, such as cerebral palsy, autism, life-limited conditions and hidden disabilities.
But we don't let that stop us or hold us back.
We have a voice and we use it to affect change in our community for others like us.
I am made, I study media studies. I am unique, powerful and totally awesome. I am able to do anything, I am powerful, so I can achieve anything if I put my mind to it.
I coach and referee football.
I sing and keep learning.
I fly through the air at gymnastics.
We are all accepted as we are.
In 2022, I joined Sunderland Youth Council, and in 2023, I also trained as Young Commissioner, which is a group that evaluates services in Sunderland. I was very busy with local Youth Voice and enjoying the opportunities they gave me. I have been well recognised for my contributions. I was even on the interview panel last year for the new CEO of Together for Children. I asked Simon Marshall some hard questions. However, my real ambition is to be able to influence people in government and people who can make a difference on a national level. I had experience of speaking to local councillors and other important people, so when the opportunity rose for me to join FLARE, the Department for Education's SEND Youth Advisory Group, I applied. In September 2022, I was accepted and have been attending meetings in London 6 times a year ever since. Being part of FLARE has brought so many opportunities. It has enabled me to contribute to discussions that feed back to the DFE. Being in FLARE has empowered me to speak up for myself and my local area about issues that have directly affected me or people like me. Things are not good in this country for young people with SEND. That is not a secret. However, government ministers need to hear our real-life stories and lived experiences. They need to see our faces and feel our struggles. Youth Voice is the way to do that. Every year, there is a national conference run by the Council for Disabled Children called Youth Voice Matters. In 2023, I ran workshops about getting the right education support, and in 2024, I was invited to be the conference chair alongside their CEO and director and make a speech. The conference is attended by Youth Voice groups from all over the country and is a great way for them to get involved in the work FLARE does and help make a difference nationally. I have been able to present at ministerial roundtables 3 times now. It is something I really enjoy. My latest one was with Catherine McKinnell a few weeks ago. Bridget Phillipson is my local MP and, as you will know, the Secretary of State for Education, which is exciting. I'm booked into her next constituents meeting next month. Let us hope I get a chance to speak to her. I want to tell her that she needs to make transitions a priority. Now I am at Newcastle College. It is more difficult for me to attend groups in Sunderland. I am thriving at college, which would not be possible without my peers. I'm able to make the most of every opportunity and get involved in the life of the college, not just turn up for lessons and leave. In October, I ran for Disabilities Officer. All my classmates helped me put my posters up all over and told everyone to vote for me. It worked and was elected. I feel as though I am delivering on my manifesto very well, having already introduced a disabled pay misuse reporting system, fair access to work experience and more inclusive college trips. In my experience, the issue with Youth Voice is that you only get a small representation of young people. Something we could all get better at is finding ways to reach more people, using surveys and things like that. I think social media is very powerful, however the Youth Voice posts don't have a lot of likes and shares. I wonder how many of you here today know about all of the Sunderland youth groups, what they do and how to signpost young people to join. All young people should know these groups exist and I think schools should promote them better. Lastly, I would like to tell you about my biggest achievement of all. Last year, I started my own business called Dream Big Live Bigger. My goal is more than just getting my voice heard. I am a disabled rights activist. I am still very much focused on improving education, health and social care services. However, I have other passions too. One of my passions is to break down the barriers in sports and physical activities so everyone can achieve. Another is the Right to Fly campaign. It is 2025 and we can't sit in our wheelchair to travel on a plane. Well, I love to travel, so I guess I am just going to have to change that. I have started getting some paid work alongside my volunteering, which is great, since my employment options are not as broad as most people's. Everywhere I go, I talk about equity. If there is one thing I want to achieve, it is for everyone to understand what it is. Lots of people talk about equality, but it is not the same thing. Equity is focused on outcomes. So, for example, if the outcome was for everyone to have a drink, I would need a straw, but most people don't. I need something different to be able to drink. Equality is all being given a glass of water. Equity is giving everyone what they need to drink it. It is often a very difficult thing to achieve, but there is always a way. If you have any comments or questions about Youth Voice or anything else, please send them using Mentimeter now. Please take my business card and check out my website. If you or anyone you know needs someone to co-produce, promote, advocate, motivate, participate, consult or train in the realm of special educational needs and disability, think Sam Ogle and get in touch. And for my final clip, a demonstration of equity. This video proves that, if you were given what you need, you can do anything. It was a few years ago now, at a place called Bendrick Trust. People could learn a lot from their attitude to disability.
Sam. I think we all feel very privileged and very inspired after seeing your presentation and listening to you. If anyone has any questions, please use the QR code, and will you be able to share your presentation with us? Or yeah, so we'll be able to share that all with you. And if anyone has any verbal updates or anything they would like to say, please do it now.
Just to say, that's a fantastic presentation, Sam. Just fantastic use of your communication and bringing out all of the aspects of kind of health and social care and education. And I think we really need to use you as much as we can across all of our different areas and sectors, because you've absolutely nailed it. And from a kind of social perspective, but also the education and think about the transition in the future. So I think it would be really good, you know, if you're able to help us with that planning for the future. I think that would be really great. And get on with it first.
As Kaneshi said, that was just absolutely amazing and very inspiring, absolutely fantastic. And I know Bridget, I've met her a few times, which is lovely, so I'm sure she will be really keen.
Not everybody answers my email.
I'd love to hear, Sam, about what happens after you've met Bridget. I'm really, really excited for you to take on the airlines. I'll tell you a story after this, outside of this, about a friend recently travelled to Japan who's a wheelchair user, and he's in a band, so I'll tell you about his experience. But yeah, he'd love it if you could come back airplanes, please.
Do you want to answer a couple of questions with your voice, and then we can help if you need?
So many of our colleagues that I enjoy doing. Services for today, and this year got on the road. I got my level 3 4K course development course, which can be really important too.
Moving on to level 3, coaching and development next year. Smashed this year, haven't you?
So, I was here about 2021, 2022, after the time. Ideally, I'd be heading for Oakland League. That is the dream goal, obviously. I got it happen.
Professional coach, you think?
Yes.
Probably, knowing you. How long have you got?
Well, I get a bit more to America. I get to America. All in school. Get it me.
Again, how long have you got?
It's very serious or aren't the best. However, that is positive. The service call while we were waiting. That's really positive for me. Actually, as the gym service, I helped me find the gym I got now. So yeah, that while we were waiting is really positive.
Is that your answer? Do you want the next question? Are you going to speak?
It was good in some aspects, but I think it just wasn't hurt the same on certain tissues. when I first started, I had like 4 or 5 grade teachers. I went above and beyond for us. Everything was brilliant. But always, I look at leave and then move on. So that situation, it comes hard.
You want to comment on? You just want to.
Very good, very good. Living my health was throughout my whole life really. And when I was younger, I found it really hard to speak my voice. I couldn't do it anyway. But I really happy on my voice. We brought it on. Obviously, I won't be able to do this long speech on my voice. So I'm communicating make it really helpful to me. But also, become really accent make me feel like it's not make me feel more me anyway. How much of the accent on communication. Like, instead of home, just go out in the yard for me. But I obviously, the teacher just sit back and just let me have conversations with me. So, I obviously end on bed, make bed, and stuff. Hold on, also, a big area in the roof. That's oh my God.
I think there was a couple I missed at the top. Oh, that was the first one. Sorry, we're not finished reading that, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I think I do encourage more young people to do this sort of stuff because for you guys to know what's going on and what you can do there. But also, more importantly, what is going well, so you can continue to do that. I think I was just sick of something for a while ago. I thought it can't be this forever, so now I need to feel just need to change. And what I would achieve is really like how you feel like me with this really. I did it for life. By for life, I mean for life. I would say the most important thing is the young people. The young people know best.
Full stop.
You know, his parents after that, after you repeat that. Possible.
Yeah, no problem. I said, don't get you myself. I do always do fun.
I think that's it. Mayor's formal being added to the end.
Thank you.
Tells you the number at the top. So you were at 15 and 15 before you went back up.
Yeah.
Done
Yeah,
that one.
done that one.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't only keep you right either.
I know. It's changed.
Oh. So, do you anything or do possible?
And just go for it.
Oh, if I did. Probably good to hear the Eagles.
The Eagles, you say?
Mm.
Eagles. Why the Eagles?
Yes, cause.
Just
a teenage answer there.
That was.
Yeah.
So articulate, and then we'll get just cause.
No, yeah. Really happy.
Want to say anything else about that?
How long did it take you to recover from the trip?
3 weeks.
It hasn't been 3 weeks yet.
I'm still afraid to come down. I was always more than 8 weeks.
Rubbing it in now. Have you answered? That's it. And if anyone's got any questions or want to shout out, then please do. Otherwise, I think the plan was Sam's going to have a little walk around and just get himself a drink and things like that, and he's just going to have a little, well, roll around, sorry Sam, and just do a bit networking. If anyone wants to talk about anything, feel free. Okay.
Also, ask everyone to make sure they sign up for the Fillmore Office Education. Yeah, please meet someone new today.
It's nice to get a face and a name. Right. It's about communicating with where's Mia? Is it Mia or Maya? Mia. Where's Mia? What's she saying? What is she doing? How can we get behind? Because it's important that things can't be done for music. And it's about that bit about doing regular and so where you're at, do you feel not sure how to approach this? Like you have to talk to people, but you have to advise
Is this all
Thank you.